Hello and welcome back. In this video, we are going to start with lookup and reference Excel functions, and we will learn VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP functions. These are very important and most used functions in Excel. So let's get started. First is the VLOOKUP function, and it has 3 mandatory and 1 optional argument. Let's try to break it down. This function name has 2 parts. First is the letter V, which stands for vertical, and it points at the data which flows vertically from top to bottom, or in other words, the data which has column-wise headers. 99% of the time, Excel data will have headers in the columns, and obviously, VLOOKUP is used more widely as compared to HLOOKUP. Second part is the name lookup, and it refers to the value we are searching for. So basically, VLOOKUP will search for a value in a given dataset column and pulls the value from another different column which is in the same row. The first argument is the lookup value, and it's the value we are going to search for. The second argument is the table array, and this table or dataset must include the references of input and output values. Next is the column index number, and it is the column number in the input table or dataset from which the output value needs to be extracted. The last is the range lookup, and the input for this is either true for approximate match and false for exact match. Most of the time, the input for this argument will be false or 0. The next function is HLOOKUP, and it has similar set of arguments. This function works similar to VLOOKUP but on horizontal data, and of course, that's what H stands for in the function name. Horizontal lookup. By now, you must have guessed it that this function is used when data flows from left to right, or the data which has row-wise headers. So basically, HLOOKUP will search for a value in a given dataset row and pulls the value from any different row which is in the same column. All the arguments are same as VLOOKUP. The only difference is the third argument. In VLOOKUP, we need to give column index number as the input, as we need to pull the value from another different column. Here in HLOOKUP, we need to give row index number as the input, as we need to pull the value from another different row. So finally, we are done with all the basics. Let's jump back to Excel and understand the basic rules we need to follow while using these functions. So we are back into Excel, and this is the sample data we will be using as an example. We have product ID, product name, and their prices in one table, and we also have their units sold in different table. This arrangement is for VLOOKUP, as we have headers in vertical columns. Down below in HLOOKUP sheet, I have arranged the same 2 tables horizontally with headers in horizontal rows. We will try to answer same set of questions in both the functions, and that should help us to understand these functions in a better way. So the first question is to find the product name of product ID P008. Let's add VLOOKUP function. The lookup value will be product ID P008. The input to table array is a bit tricky and important to understand, so let's do it slowly. When we select the columns as an input to table array argument, we need to follow some rules. Rule number 1, we need to ensure the value that we are looking for, or the lookup value, is always in the first column of the data we are going to select. Rule number 2, all the selected columns must be adjacent and must include output value column. So following both the rules, we will select column A and column B as input to this argument. A is the input column, B is the output column. The input to the column index number will be 2, since the output is in second column of our selection. And the last argument will be false, as we are looking for exact product ID value. Close the bracket and hit enter to get the name as speaker. Second question is to find the price of product ID P004. Let's add VLOOKUP function. The lookup value will be product ID P004. The table array will be all 3 columns. And again, to retouch on the rules, our input is in the first column, output value is in the third column, and we are selecting the second column, as our selection must have adjacent columns. There must not be any gaps in between. The input to column index number will be 3, since the output is in the third column of our selection, and the last argument will be false as we are looking for exact product ID value. Close the bracket and hit enter to get the value as 21,000. The third question is to find the units sold for product ID P009, and since the product ID is in the first table, the units sold is in the second table, we need to perform double VLOOKUP operation. First VLOOKUP will pull the product name for product ID P009 from first table, and second VLOOKUP will pull the units sold for this product name from second table. Let's add the VLOOKUP function. The lookup value will be product ID P009. The table array will be first two columns. The column index number will be 2. Last argument will be false. Close the bracket and hit enter to get the name as charger. Now this name will go as an input to second VLOOKUP as lookup value. The table array will be all two columns. Column index number will be 2. Last argument will be false. Close the bracket and hit enter to get the value as 1200. Now let's go to HLOOKUP sheet, and we need to follow same steps and rules here as well. The first question is to find the product name of product ID P008. Let's add HLOOKUP function. The lookup value will be product ID P008. The input to table array will be first two rows. Row index number will be 2. The last argument will be false. Close the bracket and hit enter to get the name as speaker. Second question is to find the price of product ID P004. Let's add HLOOKUP function. The lookup value will be product ID P004. The input to table array will be all three rows. Row index number will be 3. The last argument will be false. Close the bracket and hit enter to get the value as 21,000. Finally, the last question is to find the units sold for product ID P009, and here the input and the output rows are in two different tables. Let's add HLOOKUP function. The lookup value will be product ID P009. The table array will be first two rows of first table. The row index number will be 2. The last argument will be false. Close the bracket and hit enter to get the name as charger. Now this name will go as an input to second HLOOKUP function as lookup value. The table array will be first two rows of second table. Row index number will be 2. Last argument will be false. Close the bracket and hit enter to get the value as 1200. I hope these examples were simple enough to show the application of these two important functions in Excel, and that's what I wanted to cover in this video.